So welcome back to Uncork My Wine, where I currently try to drink myself through 1,368 grape varieties as defined by Jancis Robinson, Julia Harding and José Vouillamoz in their encyclopedia Wine Grapes. As you can see behind me, we are in beautiful Switzerland, very close to the wine growing region of Valais, how it is called in French. And actually, when we are here, we have to taste something that is extremely typical for this wine growing region. So I have in the glass Humagne Blanc. And if you haven't heard about this grape variety, it is actually listed in the book as one of the very typical Swiss grape varieties, but there is a little bit of debate going on how Swiss it actually really is. Because if we trust the research that José Vouillamoz was doing, and amazing, this book I also got here during my trip, this amazing little book about Swiss grape varieties, then actually Humagne Blanc has its origins in southern France. So there is some genetical proof that the grape variety definitely is somehow related to the French variety Colombaud, which is pretty famous in the Provence region. And also, Vouillamoz was actually proving that by genetic analysis, we can show that it is identical to a grape variety called Miousat, which we find actually in southwest France in the Pyrenees region. So the working hypothesis at the moment is that somehow, like many centuries ago, we don't know exactly like how long ago, but the first mentioning in Switzerland is actually 1313, where it for the first time appears actually in one of the official taxation documents, and thereby it is also one of the, let's say, earliest references that we have about Swiss varieties in Switzerland. So the working hypothesis is that somewhere from there in southwest France, it made its way along the Mediterranean, over the Rhone Valley, and then along the Rhone River to Switzerland. However, why do we regard it today as a Swiss variety when it's actually maybe originating from France? That is a very puzzling question. But if we just like look at the global plantation today, then actually most of Humagne Blanc is really to be found in Switzerland. And here the region of Valais is really the biggest center where we can find this grape variety. We talk maybe about 30 hectares here in Valais, and yeah, maybe if you have then like some plantations somewhere else in the world, let's estimate we have below 40 hectares of this grape variety in terms of global plantation. So Jancis and her team are writing about the grape variety that it's an ancient, tangy Swiss variety recently revived in the Valais. And the interesting thing here is really that actually by, let's say, mid-20th century, it nearly has been extinct. So it actually has been like a big effort of like, yeah, the growers or the wine growers in the Valais region to really recultivate it and really bring it back to those 30 hectares that we have of it today. It is actually not at all related to a grape variety called Humagne Rouge, or so to say a red variety. Often you would immediately think that this is a kind of color mutation or kind of sibling, but actually DNA analysis has proven that Humagne Blanc and Humagne Rouge are not related at all. There's a little bit of debate going on where the name is actually originating from, and one of the working hypotheses has been that it is derived from the name, from the Latin term vinum humano, but actually there's no evidence to be found that this really is true. Another working hypothesis is that the word Humagne goes back to the Greek expression hylomaneos, which basically translates to rigorous. Humagne Blanc is a late ripening variety that makes it fairly ideal actually for the region of Valais, where late ripening is actually fairly important, fairly high in altitude, about 700 to 800 meters where these vineyards are located here in Switzerland. And it is also like fairly susceptible to a bunch of diseases. It's actually fairly vigorous, but has, let's say, more like irregular yields, and also it is very susceptible for botrytis, for example. So it's definitely like a grape variety one has to work with like very carefully, but of course the winemakers in Valais have a long tradition for that, and that is therefore like also one of the reasons why in this region really, when you are there, you should try Humagne Blanc, because it is basically one of the flagship varieties that we find here in the Valais. One of the producers mentioned actually in the Wine Grapes encyclopedia is Mabillard-Fuchs. Yeah? We have an example from this producer, which is a 3.5 hectare family vineyard today led by Lionel, beautifully located, really amazing vineyard views. I linked to some profile and some interview we were doing with them in the show notes, so you can have a little bit of like impression how it looks there at Mabillard-Fuchs. And yeah, if we have the wine in the glass, let's have a look. I mean, first and foremost, the color, it's a little bit pale. It actually has a little bit of like dampened characteristics, I would nearly call it. It's lemon greenish, definitely in color. If we then have a deep dive into the nose, I mean, those wines are usually said to be like fairly delicate in their style. I can definitely see it. It's not like a, let's say, expressive fruit bomb that comes with like highly aromatic fruit profile, more like a little bit subtle. There's maybe like an idea of quince, a little bit of apple, a little bit of yellow pear. And often they are said to be a little bit like linden leaf-like, or having maybe a little bit of needle tree characteristics, nearly reminding of like a Hungarian grape like Haslevelu. I can totally see that actually, that there is a little bit of this like greenish needle tree forest element in it. There is also like a little bit of minerality. There's definitely some red stone. There is definitely some yeah, forest damp, forest perspective somehow. Like the color is damp, it's also like as a wine expression, like really dampened to me. Very delicate, really reminds of like a good wine for like cuisine, for food pairings. It's fresh, it's lively, it's vibrant, it's a little bit electric in its style. Actually fairly appealing, I must say, because it's really not in the nose, it's really not like overpowering you, but really tells you also I have depth, I have complexity, a little bit of spiciness, a little bit of urbanness also in that regard. On the palate, it's fairly light and well-balanced wine. The acidity is not striking. I would rather call it somewhere between medium plus actually, especially given that it comes from like this altitude where it's coming from, 800 meters approximately. But from the body side, it's kind of interesting. It's a totally like steel tank driven wine, but actually it develops more like a medium plus body. It's really filling the mouth. It's like foamy. It's really getting us some substance, some perspective. Really lingers around with a long finish here, beautifully. Of course, no tannin structure because it's a white wine, but still there is like some grip to it. The alcohol at 13% is actually also showing, again, late ripening variety, yeah, so it stays there on the wines like for quite some time, and really the grape material is getting like ripe and can produce these, yeah, fairly complex, fairly substantial, fairly nearly full-bodied white wine style, despite only be like fermented in stainless steel tank. So Mabillard-Fuchs, definitely like a producer that is recommended for it. Really kind of interesting wine, super complexity that is showing. Humagne Blanc, really like a grape variety that I think one must try when you are in the Valais region in Switzerland, and definitely one of these like hidden gems, like when it comes to food pairings, in my opinion, delicate, elegant, beautiful, lingers around. So with that being said, cheers on Humagne Blanc, and see you around for the next out of 1368 grape varieties.